Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for spending time with us today. What I'd like to share with you today is a series of experiences that I've had in developing Move With Us with this great group of people over the last 17 years. And I'm just going to highlight two moments in that history. And I hope by sharing that experience, we form a stronger connection, because I think some of the things that we've experienced actually are very relevant to your businesses today, will be echoed further when we get into some of the later sessions. So I'll try and both share the experience, but also point forward to where we're likely to touch on the subject matter in subsequent presentations. I'm going to cover four things. Two are experiences and two are points of view as well. So again, if you can just bear with me on this. The first one is around the network effect. So what was Move With Us intending to do when we set out in 1997? To what degree did we achieve some of those aims, and what do we really mean by network effect? The second experience I'd like to share with you is how we got the Little Blue Book into circulation and what it means to us, and I'll go into more detail about that during that session. Then I'd like to briefly cover off the here and now, particularly what's happened over the summer, and a point of view on the market as it stands, and finish off with where we're going, where I'm seeing a greater degree of convergence, which means higher levels of cooperation between the different people involved in the property transaction. So we'll start with the network effect. The more people that use something, the more valuable it becomes, if it's knowledge or it's something like a telephone network or peer-to-peer sharing on an IP network. So the network effect is really about how people come together and through sharing a common infrastructure actually achieve much more than they can do alone. And it's an economic principle which I think that Move With Us had the aspiration of making happen. In 2004, we were about 500 members strong. We had what I would describe as an affiliate group, and I would still describe Home Sale Network and Relocation Network as principally being an affiliate group rather than a business network. So it was at that time we had internal discussions around, well, what do we need to do to become more relevant to our network, but also for the network to become more relevant to us as well. So how would we form a much stronger working relationship? And there were three things that we determined at that time which would be very useful for both of us. One was we were already setting wheels in motion to win corporate instructions, corporate part exchange and lender instructions, because those non-discretionary sales were being dominated by the corporate sector. So Countrywide, Connells, etc. had strong asset management groups, and the independent agents weren't able to really have a voice to win those instructions. So we thought, well, how do we win that work? And we came up with a solution, which was we'd introduce smarter technology more quickly than them, we're more agile than them, but also we'd put out something which was around, we'd instruct two agents, get them in competition, so we had multi-agency, but also we would commit to a performance selling agenda. We'd do it better than them, we'd sell faster, and we'd sell it at a stronger price. And that enabled us to actually win work against the corporates. We were used as a disruptor against the closed shop corporate world, certainly in the lender panel. We won several accounts where effectively we were there to challenge the status quo. And actually the network helped us to achieve that as well. So that was number one, how do we transform to a business network? Win instructions. The second was, how could we bring to bear a service which was highly supportive of the core business of estate agents? And through that, we developed our conveyancing proposition. Initially, that was more around referral fees and an economic opportunity, but that's developed quite a way forward from that start position. So do work with them on their core business, which is help them with the legal part of the transaction. The third tactic we were looking to make sure we were committed to was how we effectively got what I describe as a followership of leaders. In other words, people that were very strong in their own markets, we'd select in the best agents in the market, so they became exemplars for everyone else in the network. And we've worked kind of tirelessly to try to look at who are the best-selling agents in each area, and over time work with those that were pulling through to the front of that particular queue. So those are the three things we were doing in 2004. In 2014, Simon will touch on this later, we're launching a way that we can be more persistent and stronger together, but that's through a digital platform. So what we want to do is to make sure we add depth, but also consistency to the way we work together as a network. So APT in isolation looks like a revamp of the members area, but APT conceptually is about APT meaning appropriate. It's a more appropriate way for us as a network to behave going forward, because customers expect certain things from us, and I think that APT can help us to deliver that to our corporate customers and also the end customer through conveyancing as well. So what have we learned during that period as a network? I think one aspect was we had a huge change agenda. We wanted to change an industry and a group of people. Through that, we had to build a partnership approach, and we always refer to our colleagues as partners that we're working with, but also that only was developed through trust and personal relationships. So we had to be on the road talking to people and running events like this in order to achieve that. The second learning we had was we had a platform, but actually people came first. People were the way in which we worked and the way that we were able to deliver something different to the marketplace, supported by some smart technology and organised by that technology as well. So part of how we made our progress was down to the network effect and focusing on those three principles. The second thing that happened more recently was we looked towards how could we change our relationship with our customers, but also with the network itself. How do we make ourselves more recognisable and likeable as a brand? And I think later on you'll see a session by Eddie, which is around how do you get people to live the brand as well. But this is kind of my personal experience about how we got the Move With Us group to live our brand. We wanted a stronger visual representation, so the new Move With Us logo at the top there, it's around 3 years old now, that particular reincarnation of our visual representation. But also we wanted that to mean something. We wanted that to encapsulate our core purpose. To do that, we started to develop an idea about what word do we want to own that represented Move With Us and what we do. And that was properly. So Property Properly was something we used as a calling for everyone in the organisation. It was something that unified us with between ourselves as people that worked within Move With Us, but also with our colleagues working in the field as well. So from that, we defined a series of principles, and from those principles, we got the involvement of our staff to create what I call the Little Blue Book, and it is physically a Little Blue Book now. It is in your goodie bags at the end, so you'll all have a copy of this. But the reason I want to share this with you is you'll hear later on how Eddie describes how he got people to live the brand. This describes in a bit more detail about how we did it in here, and hopefully it will give you some practical advice on how to take your brand through your people to your customers. So what were the learnings we got from developing the Little Blue Book? I'll draw your attention specifically. There's meet the brand, so what our brand means and what it means to us and how passionate we are about our brand. So that's one aspect of it. And what are our core values? What do people expect us to be like and behave like when we meet them as well? So those were the two fundamentals to the brand, and then we had to get people to live the brand. Creating the brand was relatively easy. Getting people to live the brand was a far tougher challenge, which took us around a year to really establish firmly in the culture of the business. And that was, now we do call evaluations, so every call is recorded, and every member of staff that's on a service desk is evaluated against the core values 10 times a month by their line manager. So it's not just something which is in a book, it's something we live every day through the management processes. We challenge behaviours. Early on, every time someone behaved outside of the core values, then we encourage peers to challenge them on that isn't our core behaviour. Enthusiasm. If someone has a bad day and is dragging the team down, then he's reminded enthusiasm is a core value. We want people to feel as though when they arrive that they're treated with a great deal of it. You know, enthusiasm is infectious, as is a smile. You'll hear that in, I think Eddie's covers that as well later on in the presentations. We recognise and reward, so bonus schemes are all aligned to our core values as well. Not just numbers, but behaviours is what we reward. So those are two experiences that I've had over the last few years that kind of hopefully register with you, but also you'll see those in their context later on in some of the presentations. So what about the here and now? This summer has been a very odd set of conditions for market overall. What we've seen is there has been market uncertainty. August was a very difficult month, I think, for most people out there in terms of properties just not getting viewings on occasions. You know, the market has, you could say, stalled. I think it's probably, you know, is it resting, cooling, or is it just, you know, is it something which is going to return? We've seen some early activity during October, which would indicate perhaps there's some market recovery coming. But you'll hear in the economic forecast, actually, we've probably got to prepare for a longer term period of relatively tough market conditions. Legal firms became overloaded. Beth will touch on this later on about, I think that's a short-term issue, but why did it happen and what's happening to resolve that as a particular issue. And Move With Us went through a transaction. We are now part of Palomar Capital Partners. We have 3 other areas of business we're involved in as well, which I'll describe a bit more fully sort of in a few moments. But what we're consistent with is we still believe fundamentally in the network, we fundamentally believe in independence, and we fundamentally believe in local delivery of services. So those principles are things that we continue to follow through with. However, the world is changing, and I think when you hear Jeremy later on, you'll understand the degree to which it's changing, and the guy from Microsoft as well, who's on last. There is a convergence of different disciplines, and those different specialities are becoming blurred because people want to move home. They're not interested in whether it's the mortgage company that hasn't helped that to happen, or the legal advisor, or the estate agent. They're looking for those people to work in a much more cooperative and closer and more linked way. So we are extending our reach into legal services more explicitly. Chorus Law is another brand. They're number 1 in probate and work with Barclays as a legal brand. Quality Solicitors, Eddie is Chief Executive of Quality Solicitors, so he'll give you an insight into that. And also, over the last 18 months, we've been developing DC Law as our own in-house legal services brand. So the direction of travel is towards integrated services. That's to solve the problems that consumers feel, which is we don't want uncertainty, we want reduced complexity, we want greater transparency, and we want greater consistency. So to deliver those things, that requires greater cooperation in order to overcome those people that will have a more integrated approach to services. So the response by corporates is likely to be, we will build those things much more closely together. The response for us as in the independent sector has to be to emulate them without actually connecting, but through greater cooperation. I think that's about it from me. I just want to leave you with just thanking you for coming on this journey with us over the past 17 years. Enjoy the day today. I believe we have built the UK's number 1 property business network between us, and that has been very much something that has been built together with cooperation rather than coercion. And actually, I think we're in a great position by being diverse, independent, loosely linked, but tightly coordinated is probably the way that we want to develop the Move With Us brand going forward. But actually, it takes leaders and also people that are very well established in their markets for us to get there as well. So thank you for your cooperation so far, but going forward, I think now we're looking for much stronger coordination, but that has to come with us empowering that, but also working towards that through relationship. But hopefully you will respond to that by saying we're presenting some great business opportunities for you as well. Thank you very much for your time and attention.